Okay. Sylvain, hi everyone. Thanks to Alex and Nicola for this nice event. To having, oh, he's not. And Mark, yeah, sorry, Mark. So I'm going to present something that is an extremely super early stage. So, and you guys are kind of a special crowd. So, a mix, right, of very advanced kind of researcher, like far out, like bleeding edge research in terms of quantum computing, and also blockchain, cryptography crowd. So I'm thinking of using, let's say, the first 5 minutes to go through these slides and perhaps leave some time, more time for discussion, questions, depending on your interest. You know, if you have nothing to say, then I'll just keep talking. Okay, so the project's called tentatively Shift or Shifty. I say Rise of Crypto Physics because the idea is to present a bit somewhat, let's say, original approach to how to advance or accelerate the move towards quantum hardware ultimately, I would say. I think most of people here would agree with that. But how do we do that? How do we get there, right? So there's probably all kinds of ways, like many of you are doing their own original contribution. So here it's like a tentative approach to have a different approach. Yeah, let me get going with this. So this is maybe the most important slides of it all. Feynman, most people know him, right? So this is in the messenger lectures that were given at Cornell in the 60s about seeking new laws, right? Where he discusses like that in science, the way science works, right? When you try to discover new laws, the only way you can hope for is to find out that you are wrong about your assumptions, right? Basically, you can never know you're right because tomorrow there may be an experiment that disproves you. Even the speed of light could be tomorrow they measure, oh, it's, not the same as we expected. So basically we can only know that we're wrong. So here, why do I put this here? Because even in the context of what I'm going to present, what we want ultimately, I don't know if it's right, but we would like to find out that we're wrong as quickly as possible and then pivot to something else, right? So, yeah. Okay, the inspiration for what I'm going to present is like one-time programs. Because the idea is like, yeah, can we have like peer-to-peer payment systems? But not only peer-to-peer payment systems, but we can use that as the sort of like thought experiment if you want to reason about what we're going to see. Now, Galvasa in this 2008 paper showed that it's impossible to build one-time programs if you just solely rely on software. By the way, this is a classical context. Right now we're in a classical context. So, but if you combine with hardware, then you can build something for one-time programs. Now, the idea here, okay, we could get from one-time programs to peer-to-peer cash. And the whole problem, like most of you know, I guess like with peer-to-peer or digital cash is the double spending problem because you just can copy bits, right? So here, if you rely on hardware, again, in the classical context, what you can do is you just use the hardware to encumber a key or to just delete the key once you're done with signing, right? So effectively, you get one-shot signatures because you rely on the hardware. But many people will say, yeah, you're just cheating. And I'm in that camp in a way, because you just don't get me wrong. So there's a very nuanced idea of what I'm going to present next. Like, so, okay, key encumbrance, I guess you understood that, so I'm going to... Okay, the thing, this is actually a very important slide here. So with hardware, right, there was talk about device independence cryptography, right? So in the classic context, people don't talk about device independence. They talk about remote attestation. So what is remote attestation? Because usually you're talking to a remote device, right? So it's like to put things even simpler, is like, how do I know that you're the real you? Even this whole crowd, right? What if it was wrong? Let's say I'm in the wrong universe today. I think I'm in Paris at the, Quantum Punks event. But it's not. It's a copy. All you guys are fake, right? It's like would be Mission Impossible. You all go remove your mask and it's like, oh, I'm at the wrong place. How can I know, right? So, really, it's a legit question. How can I know you're the real you, right? So with trusted hardware, and the thing that people are most familiar with in the blockchain world is Intel SGX and now Intel TDX, but it's all the same thing. You have a private key that is embedded in the hardware. and then it signs attestations, and basically it performs a measurement of what software has been loaded in some encrypted region of memory. And there's a little report, it compiles, and it says what kind of hardware it is. It's basically tell you, hey, this is my state with respect to both hardware and software. I'm signing this with this key. Now, this private key is considered or assumed to be unextractable from the hardware, like physically. And there's a public key that the manufacturer publishes, and then you can verify signatures with that public key. So as long as you trust the manufacturer and the manufacturing process and all that, you're good. But in a way, it's what I want to emphasize here is that it is arguably the same problem that you find in the quantum setting, where your photon source, is it really a legit photon, real, am I talking to a quantum computer, basically? Which I think is not much discussed, at least from my past 2-3 years when I'm looking into this, working in this field, like in the context of trusted hardware and blockchain, the blockchain ecosystem, people don't talk about device independent cryptography. Now, what I have here, economic security, okay, why do I put that there? Because I would argue that, at least as far as the classical context is concerned, it's inevitable. It's basically, if you don't include economic security, this whole thing is impossible. It's just not secure. So you have to assume that you can attack the hardware up to a certain, if you have the sufficient budget and expertise, it will be possible to extract these keys and break the hardware. So that means any protocol that relies on this should have some kind of economic security model, which we also don't have right now in the blockchain context. By the way, right, again, this whole talk is about moving in the direction from what we call T-money through puff money and then how to get to quantum money. The problem is that this is kind of where we are, especially in the blockchain ecosystem, and it's even worse because in blockchain ecosystem, people rely on IntelliJX and TDX for the most part. And what we're proposing here will be a bit different. We're proposing to leverage, this is a protocol overview, but I'm going to skip that to just here, the vision forward, right? Because I want to focus on some specific key themes. We propose to us right now to work with Android-based systems, devices, which kind of sound nuts in a way, maybe, depending how you think about it. But for those who don't know, in the classical hardware context, the servers like IntelliJX and TDX are the worst in terms of security, for physical security, right? Basically, how difficult is it to extract this private key? After that, you have mobile devices and then smart cards and secure elements. And for Android-based devices, use HSMs for securing the private key, which is like a secure element in a way. So here the argument is that, hey, we could leverage Android-based systems to have the kind of T-money with other, like we have other like scaffolding, if you want, to mitigate attacks, you know, using blockchain, all that, checkpointing and all that. But the idea, what this allows us to do, if we do that, okay, if we start doing that, you can build like what could look like a quantum-inspired system, which from the user experience standpoint, it will behave as though it will be like, let's say, quantum money, okay? Because if I have a phone, right, and I just Bluetooth or whatever, transfer you money, I'm just basically in a way moving the bits from one phone to the other, and that's it. Right? There's no network like consensus or whatever that needs to be involved. But the big problem is that, yeah, you trust that hardware, right? So, but the idea here is, okay, we put the necessary scaffolding for security in place around that. And then after that, we have puff. Puff money, I don't know if 2 minutes? Yeah, it's okay. It's okay because we're going to have a workshop after maybe, so if any of you are interested in that. So physical unclonable functions, right? This is like fascinating. It could be like an hour-long talk because puffs in a way sit at the intersection of classical hardware and quantum hardware, arguably. Maybe I hope people disagree with that because that will be interesting. But because the thing with physical unclonable functions, they leverage electrical noise and unpredictable characteristics of a chip to derive entropy. And the way it's like if you observe the puff, okay, the circuitry that is called the puff, you actually you introduce your own noise. And the keys that is generated out of the entropy will be from different entropy in the sense. So you won't be able to observe the key. So puffs arguably are like not observable, or they break under observation. But they're in the classical context. So if you use a puff you can use puffs to generate keys. And so you have a hardware. Military people use puffs and IoTs, but for whatever reason, the chips that we use in the blockchain ecosystem don't leverage puffs. So now if you have hardware that is based on puffs, your root of trust, the private key, is much more secure. Still, you need, again, that economic security that I talk about, because you still have to do remote attestation. But then, again, it puts us closer and closer to the quantum money. So maybe I can stop or slow down here, because I'm probably 30 seconds or something. But so that's, yeah, that's a bit, right? So to sum up, okay, right now we're thinking of building Android-based T-money that you could transfer from phone to phone, which sounds a bit, anyways, adventurous, let's say, but with the necessary scaffolding to ensure the top security, but with the goal and the strategy of moving towards quantum money through puff money and so on. Yeah, that's it.
Yes, Selam, you can ask something.
I want to say something that, probably you're aware that most of the puff are broken using AI. So if you leverage weak puffs, they can also using, with all the kind of machine learning attack, you can break it. But the good news is that we can add quantum communication to make the classical puff secure. Yeah. So that's why we broke all the puff.
One thing I didn't mention, right? So some of you are doing these hybrid models like T-Rust. So that in a way you can insert T-Rust like wherever, right? Yeah.
So this is brilliant. I absolutely loved it. If I can give a suggestion, because I mean, you say it's a bit crazy to do T-money. I think just make a layer 2 where basically the wallets work in a way so that after a threshold which is low, like $50, you are forced to roll back on the main chain. At that point, where you create is a system of economic security where, I can double spend, but I can double spend so little in the end that no one cares. It's not worth it, and you can really create a very nice micro-payment network. This is brilliant. I really loved it.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that's the idea, right? Who's gonna try to break a phone to just buy a lot of coffee, right? Like, it's just like maybe some people.
I mean, literally all scammers in the world.
No, but to break the phone.
The scams that you have when you receive like messages on the phone or this kind of thing, they only rely on the fact that they won't be able to take you like 1 or 2 euros, and it's just that you multiply by like thousands or millions of people, and so they become rich this way. So no, I wouldn't like use something where someone could double spend every like dollar I use.
But do you think? Okay, that's interesting. But because, for instance, like the last breakdown, a public break of a phone that I'm aware of that extracting such keys is iPhone 4, and after that, it could happen behind NDAs, right? People report to Apple or Google that they broke the phone, and Apple and Google say, "Hey, take this money, but stay shut." Apple has a bug bounty program where they offer $200K or $100K to extract keys out of their secure enclave. So if you're able to break a phone, you might as well claim that money, that 100 or 200K. Now, there was this economic security section with a big question mark, right? This is extremely important. Now, the argument here is that if you leverage something like a phone, for the phone vendors, it's extremely bad business if someone can break their phone. So in a way, what we could be doing in doing that is you're putting the pressure on the phone vendors to have to up their security. Because unlike Intel, GX, and these kinds of chips, okay, it's a small market share of their revenue. For phone vendors, it's very disastrous if the phones are broken. So basically, we're talking about this technology is there, right, sitting there right now in your phone, right? So everyone has this. But it's not being leveraged so much for really critical applications. If we do leverage it for a critical application, back to your point, in a way, because imagine if tomorrow something like that happens, what you're claiming, it is really bad for Google and Apple, or either. Right? It's really, I think it's like
probably losing more money than the $5 on your phone.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, if they find out and I just have like 1 week, I would probably be able to make a lot more money than just reporting to Gucci and only taking.
If you have a top-up ceiling, no.
What?
If you have a top-up ceiling, no.
$50 by $50 can be a lot of money if I can like do it for every iPhone user in the world.
Sorry, this is predicated on breaking the enclave of an iPhone.
Yeah.
And you want to monetize it by making a few scams. Obviously, you sell that on the gray market and you make like millions.
Yeah.
So probably that's not even a particularly economically viable way of exploiting something like that. Like, I think there's agencies that would pay a lot more money for something like that. Definitely. But yeah, it's a point, of course. Can I just make a brief comment on the PUFs? Because you said they kind of like they straddle the boundary between classical and quantum, and you might want me to disagree, but actually I agree in a technical sense. There's such a thing as epistemically restricted systems, where you have like a classical system, but the observables, the things you can observe on it, are not all the classical ones. You only have a subset of them. That's kind of the model of these PUFs. You say, if I look at some properties, I will change the state of the system. It's the same as saying there's disturbance in the observation. In those models, you get contextuality, which is the property that makes quantum systems quantum secure. And so technically, in a sense, in that model, these PUFs are kind of quantum-like. They like mathematically are. Not physically maybe, but the mathematics that you... Yes, yeah, we'll have this discussion.
Nothing classical can be quantum. I mean, that is...
No, well... No, okay. Epistemically restricted systems. I know, exactly. So we can talk about it after, right?
But if you have enough challenge response on top, I can using the statistical analysis and I can break classical top. No matter how many challenge response I give you from quantum, you cannot break it.
You're breaking the mathematical assumption that is that you cannot observe everything. What you're saying is, in reality, that mathematical model doesn't apply. That's fine.
I just give a challenge, I look at the response, I record out my challenge response. This is not mathematical restriction. I use your POP, I do the whole statistical analysis, and there is millions of papers that show that this POP are broken.
Yeah, which means that the mathematical model doesn't fit the physical reality that you're exploiting. That's all. I'm just saying, if you accept the mathematical model, then you actually get some of these guarantees.
I think it's a great way to actually start the...
Yeah, that's not arguing, come on.
But first, let's take the